What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about the villains in Hogwarts Legacy. We've actually, weirdly enough, never done this before. So what I want to do is I want to take a look at the two main villains that so far the game has presented to us, and then I want to talk about a third option, and throughout this entire thing, maybe bounce some different theories off of you guys. It's been a long-running thing in my head that I do think generally this Goblin Rebellion and Ranrok in general is some sort of red herring, and that there's a bigger villain attached. Whether it's, I mean, he is the leader of the Goblin Rebellion, so it's hard to say, well, another goblin will kind of step in and be the lead. But I do think the Dark Wizards, right, Victor Rookwood, that is working with him, I do think it's very possible that somebody attached to him could potentially come in and be above both of them. But let's talk about what we know of these two first. And I basically just gave you the summary right off the bat. So Ranrok, obviously, he is pushed in the State of Play and PlayStation blog, and really the developers themselves, as being the lead villain of this game, right? He's the leader of the Goblin Rebellion. He knows about this ancient magic, and he also knows at some point that our character possesses said ancient magic, so now it's going to become a quest, really, for him to hunt down the character. Now, I imagine that's where the light and dark kind of options are going to be. I could very much, and of course, there could be a gray area, because you could see it as you could side with him and use dark magic. You could flat out reject him, right, and use good magic and be like the savior. Or you could maybe even be kind of a third option in the middle, where you use your ancient magic in a dark way, but you also still kill Ranrok. I'd actually kind of like to see all of those options instead of just the, not necessarily generic, but all the way good and all the way bad. And I guess all the way bad meaning you would join up with the villain and be bad with them. I'd like to see where you basically take out the villain and you become, the main villain. So there's that aspect of it, but I like the idea of Ranrok. I do think, because there's the idea of the Goblin Rebellion and about rights and all that stuff. I mean, I could easily see this as there's something sympathetic to Ranrok in the beginning where you say, oh, they're just looking for equal rights. Like, it makes a lot of sense, but it's like a radicalized rebellion, right? And he somehow knows, however he does it, right, that there is ancient magic, and he's kind of using the Goblin Rebellion as a backdrop while he's actually searching out the character, the one we are playing as. He's really searching them out to rule the world, whatever, which obviously doesn't seem very equal. That's the way they can kind of mold this, where you feel sympathetic maybe to the cause, and maybe you feel it to him originally, and then you start to see, okay, well, I get how he started, but now he's kind of becoming unhinged, right? Good villains tend to have some parts of them where it's like, I kind of understand why they're doing something like that. So obviously we know the most about him. What's going to be interesting, I think, in this game is obviously him, but also, again, Victor Rookwood, that we've seen extremely little of, right? We mainly only see the conversation he has with Ranrok, where our characters are kind of eavesdropping. Now, he's the leader of a Dark Wizard, say, faction. I don't know, but I will be willing to place the bet, I guess, that the masked wizards that you see throughout the trailer, the ones that are even trying to capture Fantastic Beasts, I'm going to assume those are his, minions, those are his lackeys. That just makes the most sense, at least right now, unless there's a third faction that we aren't really aware of yet. Guess that's possible, but I could imagine that if we're putting everything together, there's corruption going on. We see corruption of creatures in the State of Play. So it's probable that they're hunting down Fantastic Beasts, as we see with the Hippogriff and we've seen with the dragon in the trailer. It's very likely, in my opinion, that they're hunting down Fantastic Beasts and then corrupting them. So I assume Ranrok has that ability to corrupt people or corrupt things. Not necessarily people, but I don't know in what, aspect. Maybe he can tap into ancient magic, but he doesn't have the full thing, and that's why he needs us, because maybe they're going after beasts, but they also want to control humans, which would make, or I guess people, let's say, because obviously humans can be something different. So I think that could be something that Ranrok wants, where he wants to be able to control everything, and yet he can't as of right now, so that's where Victor comes into the picture. I'd like to see him take a bigger step. What's going to be interesting, and it's honestly, in my opinion, a 50-50 kind of coin flip for a thing like this. You can just imagine any movie, any show, any game. When you have two villains that are kind of vying for the, like for the lead, and like Rookwood is kind of lackey, like he answers to the goblins, right? You can imagine one of two things happening. Either that that alliance stays that way the entire time, they'll both get taken out or whatever, or at some point there's kind of like some uneasiness where one of them wants to just take out the other. Really, it could work both ways. Rookwood could be some sort of like, he doesn't see things very clearly, so like Ranrok is just using him and then he's going to eventually take him out by the end of the game. Or maybe reverse. Maybe Rookwood is playing dumb, so to speak, where he's just not going to ask a lot of questions, not going to really push it, and then he's going to try to be the leader of everything, you know, as the game goes on. So that's something I've thought of when it comes to Rookwood, where it's like, I mean, it could go either way. He could be an underdeveloped villain. Like, he doesn't have to be a good villain. They could not do a great job with it. Like, we don't know. We don't know how it's necessarily going to go, but I hope there's some depth there. And again, swapping who's in charge would be, you know what I mean? Like, doing a one-up on the other person, I think would be a really cool thing to potentially see in this game. Third option is this. And I mentioned obviously in the beginning of the video, I don't have a good, like, specific person or anything like that to kind of take over, but the third one would be a villain that would again kind of come in, and these two are red herrings to the entire game. Again, I wouldn't say it's necessarily 50-50, because oftentimes with these big open world games, I mean, the villain kind of presented, you know, straightforward in the trailer or state of play like this or whatever, they probably are the main villain of the game, you know what I mean? Maybe it's like reaching to say, oh, they're focusing so much on these two, but there's going to be a mystery third one that they're not even going to talk about until the game comes out. That, you know, that can happen. There's no doubt that can happen, but it's also, I feel like, the least likely, but maybe it's the more intriguing option, right? That, again, the Goblin Rebellion is kind of a backdrop. Ranrok, maybe he thinks he's doing these things, but somebody else is pulling the strings. Rookwood, again, if he's the leader of this you know, faction, this cult or whatever you want to call it, but maybe there's somebody else kind of like lying and waiting and waiting for something to happen, and then they'll take over. I mean, I feel like you could have it where there's a third thing that comes in. The interesting thing is this, though. You kind of count, like the character, the one that we play as, kind of counts. So when I talk about a third villain, I mean, potentially, depending on how the game goes, that could be you, right? I mean, it goes back to what we said in the beginning. I mean, if you're going down the dark path and you want to be bad, right? That's your choice in this game. Then at the end of the day, you would be the villain, because at some point, one of these two villains is going to sit you down for a hard-earned talk, right? And they're going to say, look, we're the cause of your ancient magic. We did something bad, so the universe or Merlin or whatever did something good for you, okay? So you have these powers because of us. We're doing this for equality. You like equality, right? So give us your powers or work with us. Actually, work with us. If you don't work with us, then we will take your powers, right? And then we can make everything equal. And maybe we can be in charge, because these wizards have always been in charge, and look what they've done to us. I mean, it kind of writes itself, doesn't it? Like a rebellion, not having equal rights. The lower class, in this case the goblins, would simply say, hey, we think, number one, we should have the same rights, but number two, maybe we should be in charge, right? Maybe the Ministry of Magic, you know, whatever. Maybe we should be the ones in the lead here, because look at what you guys were doing for all of these years. Maybe we need a change. So you could imagine them pitching that to the main character, and depending on which way you go, again, you could say, yeah, I'm kind of in. I'll be the third villain. Now, it's possible still you kill one of the two. And again, I really think either you're going to kill one of the two, specifically if you're bad, or one of them will kill the other. I really do believe we're not going to end the game with a duo villain team up. I feel like it's kind of the norm, and it's still powerful. It's not like, oh, it's so obvious that it's not going to do anything. I think it's something that's happened before, but I mean, I easily could see one of the two villains taking the other one out, and then again, maybe you could take the other one out and then be that technical third villain or something along those lines. So that's kind of how I've approached the villain talk of Hogwarts Legacy. I'm super into it. I'm super interested in what they do. And again, there's quite a few ways they could go. They could have the third mystery villain. We could be the third mystery villain. You know, these two could take each other out. They don't have to, though, right? So there's a lot of potential here. So let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Make sure you guys are subscribed, bell icon turned on so you know when all these videos go up. If you want to follow or support me anywhere else, all my social media is in the description below, including our Patreon. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you all on the next one.